Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Night. I am Brian Smith, your host, and joined by Andrew Johnson. Andrew, thank you for coming on today, my friend. How you doing today?
Yes, sir. I'm glad to be back. It's been a busy week, so I'm glad to talk some UCF football.
All right. We are right around the corner from UCF football beginning spring practice. The actual spring game, I think, is middle of April, 16th, something
middle of April, sometime like that. Yeah.
So we're right around the corner from that, too. It only takes a few weeks to complete spring ball, depending on how you want to break it up as a coaching staff. And the objective of this podcast is to talk about what we believe individually or some objectives that need to get done in the spring so you can work towards the fall. Of course, that's the whole point of spring in general. I'll let you start off. What are some of the things that you think that the Knights need to get done?
Well, one thing I think there needs to be is a standard for how this UCF coaching staff approaches the spring practice and the spring game in general. No matter how good you are or no matter how good the season was previously, there needs to be a standard for how they approach spring games and spring practices. But for me, Brian, spring practice is definitely a time for, improvement and to see where you're at on the offense, defense, the special teams end. Things that I'm looking for is what will guys do from now until fall to become a complete player and an asset to the team. So that's pretty much my opening statement. It's not much about depth chart, but more or less gives us and the fans some time to see where the football team is.
The three areas I have are really two, because one is what everybody wants to know. What's going to happen with the quarterback depth chart, et cetera. Figuring that out because it sets up your offense. Everything runs through quarterback, whether you want to talk about it that way or not. Two is O-line, which is connected to that. They brought in two tackles that are coming from the transfer portal. Who starts where? Where does Mr. Jackson end up? He came back for a sixth year. Does he stay at tackle? Does he move to guard? Does he move around? Chemistry on O-line, any school, high school, college pro, is very difficult to do. So the sooner they figure that out, because this is a downhill running football team, the better they will be. And then finally, UCF in the back half of last year did pretty darn well rushing the passer. And I think one of the mainstays for that is your pass rush works in congruence with the DBs. They played much better in the second half of the season. Yeah. I want to see them take that next step.
Right.
And how complex can they be and still be effective, not having a bust here or there, cost you a game, and really confuse teams and take the ball away more. They just didn't pick. The only thing I complain about from last year about the DBs, they just didn't get enough picks.
Not enough takeaways.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between winning and losing at the ultimate level. How was the national title game decided? It was a pick.
Right.
It's just how it was.
Yeah,
so
like you said, they improved that second half of the season.
Oh gosh.
First half was abysmal, but hey, they stepped it up. T. Will did something in the locker room.
I don't know. That light switch went boom.
Yeah.
So, and once it did, they could play man, they could play zone. They mixed it up. They played a lot of different coverages. So, all right, we'll start off with something that you and I were talking about off the air.
Right.
One of the things in college football, and it probably cost UCF the Navy game last year, special teams. When you have a quote unquote blunder, I don't care who's at fault. I'm not into the name blame game. Whenever you have a punt blocked in a game, if you look at percentages, regardless of what the point spread was or whatever, the chances of a team losing a game when they have a punt blocked goes up exponentially.
That was a big play.
If that play doesn't happen, they probably defeat Navy, maybe even 10, 15 points. The game just went boom. They got all the momentum. It was right before halftime. UCF went into halftime with a limp, and they just didn't really recover.
Right.
Absolutely. Colton Boomer is coming to UCF as a kicker. I don't know if he's going to do any punting or what the plan is there. But for one, just for people that don't know, I've seen a lot of kickers in my life that are rated high. He's walking on, and he's one of the best kickers I've ever watched. I mean, I stood right behind him and watched him kick 40, 50-yard field goals when it's halfway up the net.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, he's got a big leg.
Well, that'll be good for any UCF fan that, watches and kind of scared of Obarski because he's a little up and down. You never know what he can give you.
A little? Hey.
Just talking about the special teams really quick, when you got a freshman quarterback like Mikey Keene, those field positions and being able to get 3 points out of those drives are so important.
Yeah, 3's better than 0.
Right.
You
So
know?
that'll be important going forward when you got a top-ranked kicker coming to UCF. That's going to be great.
Two, with that, if you can just win what you just said, you took the words out of my mouth. The field position battle is part of it is just getting far enough to kick a field goal. They're going to be able to kick 50-yard field goals with boom. That changes, and that's part of field position because instead of we really got to throw it to the sticks here on 3rd and long,
right.
We might run it for 4 yards, except that we're not going to get the first down, but we've got Colton 4 yards closer. I'm assuming he's going to win the job. Till otherwise proven, I don't care who's on the roster. I've seen this guy kill it. Prove me wrong, and I think he'll earn a scholarship. But that changes how you coach. It changes play calls.
Yeah.
1st and 10, 2nd, 10, 3rd, whatever. So that's very important. And I'm glad you brought up special teams because when I first started covering UCF, one of the very first things I learned, the first time I went in the booth, had somebody, I can't remember which person it was. They said, yeah, the kicking game.
Yeah.
It kind of gave me one of those. I'm like, oh.
It's inconsistent. We can get a guy like that, and you said you sat behind him kicking 40, 50 yards.
Oh, no. He was at an all-star game in Orlando before. I'm literally 5 yards behind him videoing. I watched the ball. Like I'm right behind Colton, and I'm like, it's going down the middle, and it's 15 yards beyond the post. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, and UCF fans are scared of. They're scared of 30-yard field goals. So hey,
he was kicking a 40-yarder like I would shoot a layup. So it's not the same as being in a game. I grasp that, but that's improving your team. Competition.
Sure.
Are there other guys going to compete with him? Of course, but that's a good thing for UCF football. What else?
Really quick, just for those who are watching, we kind of talked about it off air about who do you think is going to return? Last year they did Titus back there. He was one of the younger guys, maybe for injuries or whatnot. But who do you think? Did they get a Johnny Richardson back there? Did they get a RJ Harvey back there? What do you like?
Twofold on this. Number one, that is a wild possible, depending on who wants to return, competition because those two for sure. Obviously, there are a couple of receivers that are really good that I think can do it, but you don't really want them to take a big hit, especially on punt. Kickoff's a little different, but punt return, you got to have some guts. And because of that, there's two freshmen.
Yeah.
And I know them both. And if there was ever a guy that just had the persona to be that diva punt returner, it's Quan Lee.
Quan Lee, there you go.
I mean, he's an arrogant guy, but he backs it up. So if he can catch well in fall camp, he might be their guy. Right. And they might say, look, if you want reps as a receiver, this is part of the process. And he likes punt return anyway.
Yeah, if they're struggling to get him on the field, he's a playmaker, guys. If they're struggling to get him the ball, that special teams position is perfect for him. He'll make some plays happen.
He could be a guy that returns a punt for a touchdown next year. Right. You don't know. He will rarely at the college level have a guy like, let's say, 2 yards in front of him. They're dead set. They're both stopped. Like he gets the ball. Good luck to the other guy. Yeah. He's very twitchy.
Okay.
And to that, there's a certain guy from Berkeley Prep that's coming over.
Those two guys are electric when they get the ball in their hands. Man, you got to find a way to get them.
You're almost looking at two clones of each other in terms of style of play and body frame. Their personalities are just opposite. Xavier's real quiet. But as a football player, he will embarrass you in the same way Quan will, make the first guy miss. And then if you don't have a great angle, he will beat you to the corner pylon for 6. So both those guys, I think, will play.
Human juke sticks. So you got to get those guys.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Right. And then, of course, again, you look at the receiving core that UCF has. Heck, there's Johnson, the backup receiver. I mean, he's going to be a senior. Maybe he wants to be an expanded role.
Right. It's going to be tough. We don't know, guys. We don't know, but we're just postulating.
Yeah. I'm just throwing. I have no idea, but they have so many good options.
Right.
If they do not, I'm just going to say it now, and I'll probably say it multiple times between now and the start of the season. If they don't return at least one, if not 2 punts for touchdowns next year, UCF has failed in some capacity.
Yeah. Too much electricity back there. Too much talent. You got to get one from special.
They have Alabama-type talent as returners, literally.
That speed is crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they got Amari Johnson as the fifth guy that we're talking about. Are you kidding me? Because he can fly.
He can get the ball too.
I'll take my chances with what UCF does because they'll get to see practice and all that, all the coaches. Yeah. But there's so many good options. One of them, if not 2 or 3, will be fine.
They don't got to do it. I don't want to get too tricksy, but that special teams can have some fun back there. They put 2 guys back there, run some fakes. You never know, man.
Gus Malzahn has been known to be that guy.
Right. He got some tricks up his sleeves.
In addition to that, just for fun, Colton Boomer is not a kicker. What I mean by that is he is jacked and he can fly. They might do one of those, like you throw it over or something like that at some point. He could run.
Right.
He can flat out run.
Yeah.
So
get a first down too.
I would be shocked if he's not the fastest kicker in college football from day one.
And you got Alex Ward returning. That special teams is going to be. They should be a positive.
Oh yeah, having an excellent return game, a kicker, having this is so important. Having a long snapper that nobody knows means he's doing his job. When you're known as the long snapper, it's not usually
not making mistakes.
Nobody talks about him because he does his job.
Yeah.
Good for him, and he's going to get paid to do it very soon. Moving on, which category do you want to hit next? We'll go to whatever you want to go to next, buddy.
We'll do it now, but just to keep it short for those who are watching, we'll talk about the quarterback position because this could be a whole podcast. I don't know. It could be a whole show, right? I don't know who's going to emerge, whether it's Mikey Keene, whether it's Rhys Plumlee, whether it's the younger Thomas Castellanos. I don't know. Well, what do you think, Brian? What would you like to see out of the spring practice in the spring game?
What I would like to see and what I expect to see are not
two different.
That's
a fact.
I would like to see a player come out of spring and be the guy, and Gus be able to name it, and B, the guys that don't get the job to stick around. Those two things generally do not work, and that's why the following is almost a lock. Gus doesn't name a starter. It'll probably still tick somebody off because everybody wants guarantees so they can transfer. Gus is in a no-win, and he knows that. He's probably going to play multiple quarterbacks depending on who they play against. Because, like, if John Rhys Plumlee is in a situation, let's say Mikey beats him out, hypothetically, that doesn't mean you don't use John in inside the 10. For anybody that hasn't seen him over time, he can fly. Yeah, I mean, RPO, he is a nightmare.
Against SEC competition, not saying SEC, but I'm just being real, guys. That defense is a little crazy.
He ran for 210 yards against the team that won the national championship.
Yeah, come on, man. There's 5-star guys. There's talent all over the field.
That OSU team, 2/3 of them made money out of the starting lineup. So anyway,
just being realistic.
Does Mikey win the job? I'm going to pick him to win the job until otherwise proven, just because he's the incumbent, but I really don't have a clue.
And I think we're at odds with that. I think you got him. He's a more experienced. He knows the playbook more.
Yeah,
we've seen the guys rally around him.
Yeah, but at the same time, Gus has proven guys like Plumlee that his team bet. So I mean, I have no idea if there isn't at least one. I'll just say this: this is my guarantee. Somebody's transferring, if not two guys.
Right. I think Marco Navarro, he might take his
time. I mean, and I get
guys
it.
like that will probably head out.
I have no idea what's going to transpire. But the other part of that is I can tell you flat out from talking to him prior to Plumlee coming, Castellanos told me he thinks he can start. He could, he's got to run the playbook and all that. You have 3 guys with that kind of expectation.
Yeah, we talked about that, man.
It is what it is.
Just to get my perspective, I just think Plumlee offers more to Gus Malzahn's playbook and what he wants to accomplish with that RPO.
I don't disagree. Now, I think at some point he will start during the year. I just think at the beginning, the safest pick is Mikey, but I don't know.
He won a bowl game. He excelled in the second half of the season, and I think he got that confidence from his teammates and especially his offensive line. We talked to his offensive line, and they had some confidence in him as well, and that's important.
If John is able to figure it out and gain the confidence of the O-line and the running backs and all that, then things change. I'm just the guy that's glass half empty. You got to prove it to me. Just because you were good at over here doesn't mean you're going to be good at the new institution you're at. So Ole Miss is one thing. Let's see what he does at UCF. The physical tools are there, but he wasn't accurate enough for me. Mikey's a more accurate quarterback. So you're not gonna beat elite teams unless you can be accurate at quarterback.
Right. Just a goal for that group. I just, like you said, I wish somebody would separate themselves over the competition. At least one guy, maybe 2.
How it's perceived publicly and what Gus talks about,
Yeah, for those
Two
of us,
separate
that's
entities.
very secretive, he doesn't like to give out.
Yeah, Gus is not very friendly with information like that. So it is what it is. Quarterback is hard enough. So I'll leave that be.
Right.
Your identity point, and kind of like that. Go ahead and talk about that because I want to come. Go ahead and throw that out there again for the people listening.
Well, so what were we saying? The identity point? Say it.
Well, with spring, like who you are, what you're going to do, make sure everything with practice, and
Yeah. So like I said, to me, it's just going to see who. It's going to be interesting to see how bigger and stronger some of the guys have gotten. After following that bowl win. And for me, like I said, it's not too much about depth chart. It's about setting the standard and approaching these spring practices as like a goal, like just creating a gold standard for UCF and those younger guys, so that those guys that are coming in, they know what it is when it comes to this time.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the strength and conditioning program anywhere is the backbone of any program.
Yeah.
And most people probably do not know this, but once the spring concludes and the spring semester concludes, the NCAA is a goofy entity anyway. Mm-hmm. The head coach and the coaching staff have very little contact with the players. True story. Legally, they're not allowed to because NCAA doesn't trust them, and they're probably right about this, not to do a ton of coaching. Now, you can only limit it so much because some of it's done in secretive, but the guys in general that do are the strength coaches, and it could be some of the gals and the guys and the nutrition. All of them are around them constantly. If they don't buy in going into spring practice, all the other stuff that Andrew and I are talking about right now
that's so key.
It's that you're done
buying in, man.
The other team is stronger than you. Chances aren't very good you're going to be consistently winning football games. So the strength and conditioning program that Andrew's talking about is 100%. Doesn't matter the program. A fact that if you do not buy in and you do not believe in that program, you're going to lose close games. And that's the difference between being 7-5 and sometimes 11-1.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That's going to, that coaching staff setting that standard is going to be so important moving forward.
Oh, hell
yeah. Spring is an important, time in the schedule, because some of these kids can go back home during the spring and lose all of what they've been building up. That's important for coaches as well. So,
it matters.
Yeah.
As far as what I was talking about, and this ties into it to a certain degree. Okay. O-line is a position traditionally we think about run blocking first. They prefer to run block, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what's interesting about that, as I noted earlier, you have two guys coming in. Grable and Swoboda, I think, will be the tackles. Again, we don't know. I'm just speculating. But then you move Sam Jackson to guard.
Guard, big guy.
Yep. 320 on a light. He's just a big human being, and he's an earth mover. That's what he does. I mean, my buddy trains him a little bit.
Yeah.
And he told me, he goes, man, he puts hands on you. Mm. He's a dude.
And if you can move him in that inside position,
better in space and stuff like that to play in the NFL, and he's got a chance. He thinks he can be an NFL guard. And I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting.
Right.
So my question is, who plays where? I think the starters.
Yeah.
There's some subjectivity to that as well.
Right.
Matt Lee,
I think you put Swoboda on that left tackle position, and
Grable player
on that right side, and just put Sam in that inside position because he got Matt Lee. He can play anywhere, so you're going to be experienced regardless.
The only question I have is whether or not they can. Like last year, they did well when they had injuries. Okay. Especially when you have Matt come out.
They dealt with injuries.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Right.
Like I'm looking up their depth chart right now. It's like, well, who put? And it's just, it always makes me nervous because it's not, you have 5 guys.
Yeah.
The objective is to be one, and which is almost insane. But at the same time, if you think about UCF, which guy comes in, who moves where? Do they move a tackle to guard?
Yeah.
I don't know because I haven't seen Grable play. Could he move aside if Jackson got hurt and one of the other backups played that? I don't know.
No, injuries are going to be so important, man. I didn't really think about that.
Obviously, if you change tackles, if you change 2 tackles, that's potentially speed. They could do that because Marcus Tatum's gone.
Losing Marcus.
I would assume that Medley is going to be the other guard, but
that's what I'm thinking. I'm looking at the position chart right now. I think Medley will fill that position right there.
Do they move Collins?
Oh, they got it. Nah.
See, that's what I mean. And that's why you just kind of
that's why I think this spring is going to be so important, because we can see what guys are improving their techniques and what guys are separating themselves on the offensive line.
And of course, that impacts the very next thing. The one position where UCF is as deep as any SEC team is running back. And Isaiah Bowser, if it's been proven that if you give him a crease, 2 yards becomes 3. That dude falls forward. Yeah. If he gets in, I don't want to say perfect chemistry with him in spring. That's probably not enough yet.
Nah.
Spring, summer, and fall camp.
There you go.
Got to get through all of it. And he's congruent with them, and they're fortunate enough, knock on wood, to not have injuries. And he's used to seeing all 5. He's got great vision.
Man.
The feel for him, he could be 1,000-yard running back next year, with Johnny having 500 as well.
Right.
So they could be
he's an NFL back.
100%. He needs to prove that he can stay healthy, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
But if you can get that O-line congruent with one another, they understand each other. They know all the blitz calls, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff is complex. It takes time.
Yeah.
But if they can get through spring and they get all that time together and they can work on it individually in the summer, they can't work with the coaches.
Yeah.
They'll talk about it.
Man, that last season, they were at such an advantage. They had so much games played together and so much experience. I think that's why they were successful. But like you said, the injuries to the running backs and offensive line. So if they can get past that, and maybe they were down a couple. When Matt Lee went down, you have to substitute. You have to pull guys out of the stands to come and block. You know what I'm saying? So it was getting difficult.
They did what they had to do. And unfortunately, injuries are part of football. It is a sport of attrition. It is what it is.
Yeah.
They know that going in. They're going to have different guys come in. And I know Kittler, the kid they signed out of Dallas, expects to be the backup center as a freshman. That's tough. Would they put, let's say Matt gets a sprained ankle again, would they put a true freshman in there?
That'll be tough. They might move
it. Who would move over? You know what I mean? There is a good answer for that.
I don't think Sam's – nah, he's not.
Well, here's the thing. Sam played center in the bowl game prep.
Okay. Hey, look. So you got some position guys you can move around.
To A, get a backup, and B, he expands his game for the NFL scouts. If you tell somebody, hey, this guy can snap,
right?
It happens in the NFL. If a center gets hurt, that's danger zone. You got to have a second guy. Your quarterback gets killed. What happens when your quarterback goes down to the NFL? You're done.
Your season goes down.
Yeah, you're done. So that's important. So they're trying to help Sam out too. Yeah. But I think that's a very pivotal.
You bring in Swoboda and you bring in Grable. Man, that's awesome from the transfer portal. 2 guys that can start day one.
UCF has changed the game. I'm taking Gus's phrase. He uses that all the time when we go to his press conference. They have changed the game with recruiting because they've understood the transfer portal much better than the vast majority of other schools, and they filled needs that are critical. Tackle, end, etc.
Especially other Group of 5 schools. So they're doing
100%.
They picked up some 5-star. They picked up some big time names, some guys that can contribute early on.
Yep. Here's the last point I'll make about O-line. It is going to be underwhelming to me that UCF doesn't average like 210, 220 next year on the ground, especially if you're correct. If you are correct, and let's say just for the sake of argument, from game 1, that Plumlee is the quarterback, they should average 240, 250. Now, passing might go down some, but if it's 2nd down and 4 all day, who cares?
Man, when you get Ryan O'Keefe in space and Richardson,
then
and Mari and Moby Hudson, you get all those guys going, man, that rushing scheme is going to be dangerous.
That's what I mean, because if you start having to play one-on-one all the time with Hudson and guys like that, that's really hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard. And UCF has the freshmen coming in. They've got more depth than they did.
And you got the Quan Lees with the Townsends coming in that end around, then you got Bowser brutalizing the offensive line or that defensive line to the 3rd quarter. Then the comes on top. Man, they got some positives.
I'm not worried about the skill spots, running back and receiver. They have very good coaches and they have very good talent. It'll take care of itself. O-line chemistry, and then, of course, quarterback. Quarterback, we could talk about for days.
Just to lead into the next group, my only concern with the wide receiver group is production with the touchdowns, because you're losing 11 touchdowns with Brandon Johnson. And Ryan O'Keefe gave you some scores, but he was pretty much the only guy that was scoring receiving touchdowns.
That's odd because he only had like 30-some catches or whatever, but he was
Yeah,
money.
right. And Jalen goes down, obviously. So
They need to spread it around a little better, I think.
yeah.
Hopefully,
you had a freshman quarterback. He probably had about 3-4 seconds to throw the ball, and he probably held the ball a little bit too long with a couple of those throws too. So that they'll handle that this coming up season as well.
The final point, and this is where I get a little bit football nerdy. For anybody that doesn't understand, it's okay. Just know the following. In the secondary, it's about as limitless as it can get in terms of the number of calls you can make, meaning on half the field we play man, half the field we play zone, etc. I mean, it's literally like calculus sometimes. But last year in the first 5-6 games, by and large, you could tell the wheels were not turning as fast as they want, and probably more about confidence than it is play calls. But for whatever reason, once they got to about the East Carolina game, the 6th game, it started, and definitely by the Memphis game.
I don't know what clicked, but it clicked.
I don't know either, but it's a great story. And part of that is once you start doing that and you're able to cover, this is the generic term, can you play cover one as a corner, meaning man coverage? It's straightforward on what it is. But if you can do that, then you can be more complex with other stuff because you can play bail technique where you act like you're going to do it and you drop off. You can play zone right before the snap, then jump into it. You get into a lot of little ticky-tack technical things to try to throw off the quarterback, so you get picks. If you're not confident, like they probably really weren't the first handful of games this season, why you're not getting picks? Because the quarterback knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're giving away your pre-snap read consistently and you're not tricking them after the snap, they're going to be able to do some more of that stuff. But how do you handle it against quality opponents at quarterback?
And how do you handle it?
How
do you handle it when you're losing a couple of your, excellent pass rushers that kind of help that secondary out? That's what really
being gone is a big deal. Losing Big Cat Bryant is a big deal. This is spoiler alert. I'm going to do like a top 10 headed into spring players. My number one player on the roster in terms of importance isn't a quarterback. It's Tre'mon Morris-Brash because he's an NFL physical talent, and he's a guy that in the last half of the season, man, the light went on.
Yeah.
And once he started playing at a higher level, UCF's defense started playing. These things go hand in hand. You need, quote unquote, game-changing defensive play. He can do things that go beyond learning technique, slap, rip, or whatever technique. He's just fast, he's strong, and he's very mobile. He will get to the quarterback.
Let me ask you, Brian.
Like that, it matters. Yeah, go ahead.
What's your more point of concern? Is it along the defensive line group, or is it with the linebacker group losing Tatum Bethune and losing a couple guys, having a Terrence Lewis, a new guy come in and a backup guy filling in that start position spot?
For me, that's pretty easy. It's linebacker because I don't see any depth.
Yeah, man. There you go.
Terrence Lewis is an NFL player. He'll be at UCF for 2 years and he will don an NFL uniform. That's the end of the discussion. Jeremiah is very good as well. Okay, you got two guys. Jeremiah might get paid too. It's possible.
He's solid.
Yeah. Big guy, can run, all that.
Yeah.
Who else is going to be there?
That's what we talked about.
Into what I'm talking about with the DB, because one of the things that Travis Williams, we call him T-Will, the defense core, likes to do is play a safety or corner as that nickel, but sometimes they use a linebacker. Well, they lost one of their key guys there too. It's a hybrid position. But at the end of the year, after Bryson got hurt, they were playing a pure corner on 1st and 10 against teams that might run. And he's not a big guy. You know what I mean? Like, that can't be your depth chart. And they just played what they had its first year. But I'm not convinced they're going to be able to do that enough yet. Is Kobe Perry going to be that guy, or at least part-time? Right. They can definitely – they have safety and corner. They've got numbers in the secondary. Yeah. But do they have somebody like Terrence, who you want to play downhill? People will see real quick. He is one of the most elusive linebackers I've ever seen at any level, making guys miss and then finding the ball here, quarterback, running back, receiver, whatever. But can he play out there it's complex to play that spot. There's no nice way to say it's complex. And you don't want him to have paralysis by analysis. So I really don't want him there, but they might have to. So depth linebacker is a concern.
So do you like John Powell to play that extra position, or
John is better in the box?
Yeah.
That position is a nightmare because and I know what I'm about to say is ridiculous. You need to be part corner, part DN, part linebacker. Because you get blitzing situations.
Yeah.
You're going to be going against a slot receiver sometimes, and sometimes you'll wind up against a 250-pound tight end. You don't know where guys are going to move as a defensive player. That's why the offense always has an advantage. So you just need freaks of nature as much as you can on defense because you chase.
Yeah.
Who's going to be that guy or guys for UCF this year to play what they call the night position, the hybrid linebacker? That is my number one question on defense, and it's a part of the linebacker core in general. But I think they're going to do it by committee.
Okay. They'll switch guys in and they'll try guys in.
Okay, we're playing a team this week with a really good quarterback, SMU. You know, Mordecai can spin. So they're probably going to play a pure slot. We can play a corner there. Okay. But at the same time, the next week, maybe it's Navy you're playing. That's not going to work.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's the opponent. You need 2 or 3 different plans because defenses are going against different styles, experience levels at quarterback. I'm not sure UCF is diverse enough yet to answer that. And that's what spring practice is for. We'll figure it out after they figure it out because we'll see spring game, etc. So it's a lot to engulf, if you will, at the linebacker spot. That's the easiest way to put it. And I don't have a clue which guys are going to play there. I have no idea. Do you have an opinion on it? Or, I mean, go ahead.
No, I think you pretty much hit it on the head. I just wanted to get your opinion really quick about just the secondary position. Who do you want to see stand out? And what's the goal for the secondary position in the spring practice period?
Twofold. They go together again. Devad has got to get his hands on the ball and catch the ball more. Okay. He's a freakish athlete. I mean, he was recruited to Georgia out of high school. That's not coincidence. 2, I am super, super high on Brown. Devontae has a lot of length. He improved probably about as much as any player on the roster from game 1 to about game 6 when that spurt hit. Brown was a big part.
Nah, for real.
I'm not saying that Devontae's the only one. I mean, Quadric Bullard was the best tackler on the defense. He's got to get bigger and stronger. Remember, he talked about that at the press conference right before the bowl game.
Brown stood out. I agree. He stood out to me. Maybe that could be a guy to shut down a half of the. He won't shut down a half of a side of the field, but he can grow into a guy like that. You can have confidence in playing man coverage out there on the best receiver.
The other one, and I don't know where he's going to play, like we were just talking about with regards to the night position. Hodges played it.
Oh, man.
But he's not really up, man. He did a really nice job considering, but he's not a big physical kid.
No.
Is he going to be able to handle that for 12 games? No. So
he's a good coverage guy. You know, he's a good guy.
Yeah. Does he play nickel against SMU? Oh, I will wager that he will because he fits that role in that circumstance. But against
not a run heavy team, no.
A team like Cincinnati with the big quarterback that's going to run, probably not.
Louisville, who do they put in that position? You know, he can spin it and run it. You know,
they'll probably if you're going to wager something, you want to see a diverse game plan.
Justin.
Nickel and D end and outside linebacker, they will mix it up because you're not going to out athlete Malik Cunningham. That guy is dynamic. So you need a couple of big plays where he's surprised and he gets popped and the ball comes loose.
Okay.
You know, or he throws a dump pass because he's going to win most one-on-one battles pretty consistently. So you need big plays. They could change who they blitz off the edge, change the look at the cornerback position, change the look at slot corner the night. They got to make him think because if he knows what he wants to do with his feet,
he's gone.
Good luck.
And in regards to the secondary position, just talk a little bit about what's the goal for the younger guys like Nikaye and the Henderson twins. What's their goal for this spring period?
They have to find a way to get those guys on the field. Nakai Martinez is extremely savvy. I think, and I talked to him about this last summer, he would like to eventually learn like all the spots. He's a really intelligent guy. He needs to find one, whatever it is, that he and the coaching staff agree on. Okay, we need help here. Learn it and actually contribute now. That's a big task in college football today for a DB, but he's physically capable and he wants the responsibility. If he can do that, there's no reason that the Henderson twins cannot as well. And to denote for people that are wondering who's who, note the following. Damari always plays safety. Jakari always plays corner. I don't know why, but they've made that very clear to me. So you see one group and one in a corner, that's who it is. That's just the way they've always played. but they'll be in the rotation in some capacity. But they haven't been in a circumstance where they couldn't, quote unquote, out athlete almost every guy they ever went against. They're freaks. So how much of the complexity are they going to be able to pick up when they play a team like Cincinnati or Louisville that has a really talented quarterback? Evan Prater, by the way, is a name everybody's going to know real quick at Cincinnati. He's their next QB. If they can figure out that, they'll play a lot. If not, they'll play against teams with more basic passing schemes where they can play cover one and just lock down.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And they're coming in. They're not playing in the spring, so it's going to be hard for them. But physically, there's no question that both of them have the length, the speed, and the mental toughness to just go downhill and make a tackle. So I think all three will play.
Yeah.
But they still, like, just as an example, well, what about Brandon Adams, who played like quarterback in high school and figured it out immediately last year? I didn't see that. And he's going to have now a whole spring and all that.
Yeah.
They have many good options.
It's similar to running back. They got depth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Does Adams move to safety part-time to get more? Because he's big dude.
Or to help that safety.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So I don't know, but it's a great scenario for the coaching staff because they have numbers.
It's a good problem to have with that.
Absolutely. They have some NFL talent at a game-changing position in corner, and they also have depth overall. And now they have it with experience. Last year, they were unbelievably inexperienced at defense, especially corner.
Man.
And now that has switched. You have to make a difference in the win-loss column with that, though. That's why I'm singling it out. You help Tre'mon Morris-Brash because he gets an extra 0.3 of it. Doesn't sound like a lot. That extra 0.3 of a second to sack the quarterback or knock the ball loose or deflect. That's how you win games. It's that one play you go, man, if we hadn't made that, we wouldn't have won, but we did. That's the difference between 7-5 and 11-1.
Yeah. And just to wrap that up, from my concern, I just think that defensive line position, losing Cam Good, losing Khalil Davis, losing Big Cat Bryant, that's going to be tremendously hard to bounce back from. And then you lose Tatum Bethune, you lose Stephen Zayas, another guy that can produce. Man, that defensive group's going to be interesting this coming spring.
Well, for what you just said, that's why I have Lee Hunter as my number 2 guy, and he's coming off ACL. But you can't teach 320 in athletic. I mean, God blessed him a little different. When he puts hands on another man, it's not good for the other man. So it's just no. Like he defines interior defensive lineman. The picture I got of him, I want no part of that.
Yeah, I want no part of that.
I want no part of that.
That'll be good battle for Sam. You know, so
that's what I mean. And they make each other better. Great point about that. This something that UCF could probably talk about. Some of those guys from the 17 team or any other great team. You want to
against each other. Man.
Number one in 1991, like Washington or whatever, 91 or 90, Washington won a national title. They had a special team. They had a couple of guys that nobody could block or whatever up front. Well, that made their offensive line better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With Miami and those Florida State teams.
Yeah.
You think it was fun in practice for the offensive line with the D linemen? Those guys were, that's what makes guys better on both sides. Going against Sam Jackson makes a guy better on the defensive, whether it's Tre'mon, whether it's Lee Hunter, whether it's Landon Woodson. It doesn't matter who it is. If you're going to beat that guy in front of you, you're going to have to put maximum effort out. And the idea is to make practice so hard that once you reach Saturday,
everything slows down,
Exactly. So O-line, D-line for UCF, I'm not sure the depth is quite where they want it, but it's close.
Right.
I just don't know. Like you losing Kalia at the star power part, that's the bigger deal. That's why Tre'mon to me is so important. And the other guy, let's make sure we mention him, Josh Selisar. He had a great start here, and then Tre'mon picked up, and Josh fell off. Well, they need both. And I don't know how they'll line them up and all that. They'll probably mix that up too. But if they can get something going with the D-line consistently playing well in unison with the secondary, it'll help mitigate the depth.
Man, that's tremendous. That's going to be key. And they got Montalvo back too on the defensive line. So they got some experience. Not like they're just throwing in guys. So
they can mix and match. And that matters. That matters. Again, when you play Navy, you're not going to play the same scheme that you play against SMU. They're about as far apart offensively as Mars and Planet Earth. So
Any of us that watch UCF knows the injury bug is lingering around. So if that defensive line group gets bit by it, I don't know who they're going to throw in.
Yeah, it's hard, and I remember Gus looking right at me in the press conference before Florida, like, we had 26 guys that started the year that aren't with us right now, and he was pretty agitated by it. A couple guys transferred or whatever, but the majority and just the injuries were insane.
They were piling on,
and especially when you're instituting a new scheme on special teams, defense, and offense. I mean, you're losing practice days because you put this in. Okay, the guy's got it, then he gets hurt. So that practice is lost.
Yeah. That's why it's going to be interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's why it's going to be interesting to see this new coaching staff. They got a whole spring, they got a whole summer, and they got a whole fall. It's going to see what they can put together going into that first game. I'm ready. I'm ready to see what guys with Chip. They got a couple new guys with T. Will with his energy. It's going to be exciting, man.
I just think that if they can get through spring because they know each other now, and Gus has talked about this, we know the guys, they know us. It's easier. He doesn't have to tell them, well, this is how far back from the line of scrimmage the O-line lines up with the quarterback. Well, all that is established, so it'll go faster.
Yeah, there you go.
They will have more ability to get things done.
Yeah.
Now, do you maximize? And that's what this podcast is about. And we just picked out some specific spots.
Right.
I'm not saying that the will linebacker spot doesn't need to get talked about more, but it's going to be Terrence.
No, they understand.
I
think more importantly, that defense understands the culture that T. Will wants, and I think that was part of that first half of that season. Maybe they didn't understand what he wanted, what culture he was building, but something clicked and they turned it on. So I think now they understand that.
Hopefully, and this is a big hopefully, UCF will survive some of the injury bug. As a rule, the two things that flip back and forth in college football year to year are turnovers and injuries. You have a great year in one of them, the next year it flip-flops and vice versa. So hopefully the injury bug.
Hopefully they cured it.
After last year, that's all.
Antibiotic for it or something, man.
Oh, my goodness. It really was just bizarre.
When your coach gets hurt and he has to coach on a raised platform, I've been watching.
I mean, the coach broke his leg for the love of all mankind. Come on.
I've never seen that, man. It's not funny, but I've never seen that.
It's unbelievable that it happened, but Gus is healthy now for anybody that's wondering. He's walking around fine, but
he's ready.
He's ready.
Spring ball is coming, folks. Spring ball is right around the corner.
One last question for you before we wrap this podcast up.
Yes, sir.
UCF, I mean, they've got more talent than what I expected them to have. And part of that's portal. What do you think if they could take another guy to improve the roster after spring, which there'll be more transfers? What position would you like to just hypothetically see them get a player to improve the roster? What would it be for you?
I'll say two. I got two positions. They definitely need a physical linebacker that can play that position, that can take away a tight end, can guard a running back that comes out, and focus like a Mike, so that can play three positions. But they definitely need a guy that can a boundary receiver. I know Hudson can maybe be that third guy, but I think they need a productive guy that maybe can take away a corner and a safety. Like they need to double him so Ryan O'Keefe can come across on the slant, or they can draw up some schemes for those other two guys. And we got a tight end that could catch as well, guys. So that'll be important. They need another boundary receiver, and they need a linebacker that can kind of play that overhang, take away position. I think they need an edge rusher as well, but hey, I'll stop at those two.
Well, I mean, I think Tre'mon, if Josh is good, they should be okay, but you could always have another one. Hopefully it's Katie McDaniel came in from the transfer portal, but we don't know yet.
The D-line, you got Lee Hunter, you got a couple guys, you got Montalvo, so I was like, so I said linebacker in that boundary receiver position.
I think boundary will be better than what many believe, but the depth is a concern. You could have a freshman out there if, something happens with Hudson and he sprains his ankle or something.
Got the Notre Dame transfer still.
Yeah. He didn't do anything last year. He's got to prove it.
You're a Notre Dame guy, so you know.
Yeah. Whatever. It is what it is. Prove it. He didn't catch a ball last year, I don't think.
Yeah. We've seen that. He didn't catch a ball.
For me, it's the same as what you said. It's a linebacker. I don't know about anybody playing all three, but I need it to be a versatile guy in some capacity, whether he can be just a really good nickel linebacker so you can play him again, I'll just use SMU as the point of interest against a team that on 1st and 10, they ran the ball well against UCF. They really did. A linebacker's still on the field, but he's pretty athletic. A 210-pound guy that can run.
Yeah, man.
Maybe it's Kobe Perry that I think that's probably the best bet that ends up being that guy.
Maybe.
But he can't play every rep. So if you get another guy, that's fine too. I just want to see them do something in regards to making sure they have enough bodies. Because if they lose Terrence, they lose Jeremiah.
Man, that injury bug is lingering, man. Woo.
You know, Powell is a good player, and he came on, but that would just be 3. I mean, you need a half dozen.
Yeah.
So they really could look at it from multiple ways. Do you want a freshman in there playing? They might have to. Do you want that? No, but
and we talked about they lost their top 2 tacklers with Armstrong and Bethune. So man, that's going to be tough to make up for that production. And those guys were hard-nosed, go get them type guys. Like we watched them.
Oh, 100%.
15 tackles type, 20 tackles type guys. You know,
I'm looking at the depth chart, and you're just like, well, this is what in practice.
Man,
I don't have any answer. I doubt they do either.
Right.
You just have to go through it and see.
There's no guy that's going to be out there getting that Tatum Bethune 20 tackles type night. I don't see no guy doing that on the depth chart. But hopefully this spring somebody will step up and separate themselves as a mental tough and a disciplined guy that knows the playbook and knows his position.
I agree. All right. Well, that is going to wrap it up. Andrew, thank you very much for coming on today, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Spring ball's just around the corner. I'm going to start tomorrow with some articles in regards to, hey, here are the 10 guys that I think are most important in spring. We talked a little bit about a couple of them today up front on the D-line. And it's because of what we just ended with, the linebacker spot. We're not sure about depth, et cetera. And it changes the secondary too, because they've got a chance to have a very special year in the secondary with interceptions. And if Tre'mon and Big Lee are doing their job, the picks will come because the guys will throw it up. That's just the history of college football. So I think it's going to be a chance to be really good there. But if they don't step up, then the defense could be an open book. So you got to win up front, man. That never changes. I don't care what level it is. Your D-line is a major part of wins and losses. So once again, for Andrew Johnson, I'm Brian Smith. Thank you very much. Everybody come back to see us again soon. Thank you.
Peace.